History is usually deafening. It echoes with explosions, roaring crowds, and the frantic shouting of traders on exchange floors. But the quiet unraveling of America's dominance to the north made almost no sound at all. At exactly 2:14 p.m., Mark Carney stepped out of the West Wing. He paused for no cameras. He skipped the customary handshake with the press secretary. He never glanced back at the building behind him. He entered his vehicle. The motorcade rolled forward, and in less than 4 minutes, 7 decades of diplomatic ritual were reduced to ash. Inside the Oval Office, Donald Trump was reportedly still raising his voice. Meanwhile, on trading floors in New York, Chicago, and Toronto, the calm was evaporating. The US dollar did not hold. The Canadian dollar did. The S&P 500 didn't surge on American dominance. It slid on fears of American isolation. Trump thought he was calling Canada's bluff. He imagined summoning the Prime Minister to Washington, presenting a document of surrender, and watching him sign it before live cameras. He underestimated the man across the table. He treated Mark Carney like a subordinate. Carney responded like a central banker shutting down a failing account. And now, the consequences are unfolding around you. In this special report, we take you inside. We have sources familiar with the meeting. We've obtained details of the document Trump attempted to impose on Canada, and we've reviewed economic indicators the White House would rather you not see. This isn't a routine trade disagreement. It's a separation, and America just forfeited custody of the continent. To understand why Carney walked out, you have to see what he walked into. The story didn't begin today. It began 3 days earlier at Mar-a-Lago. According to leaked State Department memos, Trump's team drafted something called the Northern Alignment Protocol, a polished title masking what amounted to an economic annexation. Portions of the draft reveal no room for compromise. It was a demand sheet. First, Canada must synchronize its energy export limits with U.S. domestic policy, meaning Washington would effectively determine how much oil Alberta could sell. Second, Canada had 30 days to impose a 100% tariff on all Chinese electric vehicles and battery components, or face sweeping U.S. tariffs in return. Third, the Canadian dollar would be required to trade within a fixed band against the U.S. dollar, stripping the Bank of Canada of its independence. When this document reached Mark Carney's desk in Ottawa on Tuesday night, he didn't summon his cabinet. He didn't hold a press conference. Instead, he called the CEO of the Royal Bank of Canada. He phoned the Premier of Quebec. He reached out to the head of the European Central Bank. He was measuring leverage. Trump assumed Carney was flying to Washington to negotiate surrender terms. In reality, Carney was delivering a single word, no. He understood the trap. Sign. And Canada becomes a 51st state in practice, if not in name. Refuse. And Trump brands Canada the enemy and lets the markets burn. Carney chose a third path. He attended, he listened, and he allowed Trump to unravel on his own. Inside the Oval Office at 2 p.m., the doors shut. Normally, there's polite conversation, comments about the flight, friendly greetings. Not this time. Sources say Trump remained seated, no handshake. He pushed a folder across the desk and said, "Mark, you're killing us. Lumber, dairy. Sign this and we're friends. Refuse." And by midnight, I put a 25% tax on every car part crossing that bridge. Consider who was sitting across from him. This is the man who navigated the 2008 financial collapse, the one who steadied Britain during Brexit. Mark Carney does not flinch easily. He didn't even open the folder. He looked at the president and replied, "Mr. President, this document violates Canadian sovereignty. We will not sign it, and we will not negotiate under threat." Trump erupted. Aides describe it as rally mode. Grievances poured out. The War of 1812, Justin Trudeau, NATO spending. The volume rose as he tried to dominate the room with sheer noise. Carney waited. When there was finally a pause for breath, he delivered what may become a historic line. "The United States is our neighbor. You are not our owner. If you pursue a trade war, you will lose the energy grid in New York State by Friday. Would you like to explain that to your voters?" Trump went still. He's accustomed to politicians watching polls, not technocrats who understand infrastructure down to the wiring. Carney rose, fastened his jacket, and said, "When you are prepared to treat Canada as a G7 partner, call me. Until then, we're finished." Trump shouted after him, warning that leaving would destroy Canada. Carney kept moving. He understood something Trump didn't. The markets were already listening. If you think this didn't happen, look at the systems. Trading today isn't traders shouting in jackets. It's algorithms scanning headlines in milliseconds. The moment Carney leaves White House early flashed across Bloomberg terminals, automated systems began selling the dollar. Within seconds, it slipped against the euro and yen. Why? Because global markets depend on stability within the North American trade bloc. If US-Canada commerce fractures, the United States becomes economically isolated. Trump shattered stability. The machines responded immediately. Then Detroit felt it. In Michigan, General Motors and Ford briefly halted trading amid volatility. Modern vehicles aren't built in a single country. They're built across a continent. A steering wheel from Ontario, a chassis from Ohio, electronics from Quebec, final assembly in Michigan. Parts cross the border 7 times before completion. If that border thickens, production halts, Trump may believe he's targeting Canada. Auto executives understand the reality. If this dispute lasts even a week, American workers are sent home and assembly lines go silent. The fourth sign is the most unsettling. If you think this is just political theater, look offshore. Maritime transponder data shows 3 heavy crude tankers off the coast of Maine. They were scheduled to dock in Portland tomorrow, carrying millions of barrels of Canadian oil for northeastern refineries. At 2:40 p.m., 15 minutes after Carney exited the White House, all 3 vessels altered course. Instead of heading to America, they turned east toward Rotterdam, toward Europe. This isn't symbolic. It's supply diversion in real time. Carney isn't merely threatening to cut off energy flows, he's redirecting them. He's demonstrating that Canadian oil is a global asset, and if Washington refuses respect, Europe will gladly pay market price. Ships changing direction aren't rhetoric. They are investment decisions, and this one signals a withdrawal from America's economic future. And then there's the silence in Washington. Typically, when Trump makes a dramatic move, Republican allies flood the airwaves in support. Today, quiet. Senators from border states, North Dakota, Montana, New York, are saying little. They know their farmers rely on Canadian rail. Their refineries rely on Canadian crude. They understand this wasn't coordinated policy. It was anger. To understand why Trump is losing control of this story, you have to understand how he operates. For decades, Donald Trump has relied on one core belief. Leverage wins. America is bigger. Therefore, America prevails. He is louder. Therefore, others fall silent. That strategy has worked on leaders who craved his approval. It does not work on a central banker. Mark Carney is not a television personality. He led the Bank of England. He headed the Bank of Canada. He oversees trillions in climate finance. He reads risk the way others read headlines. Trump sees trade as a duel. Someone wins, someone loses. Carney sees trade as a system, interconnected, balanced, fragile. When Trump threatened to detonate that system, he expected panic. He expected pleading. Instead, Carney understood a basic truth Trump resists. The United States depends on Canada as much as Canada depends on the United States. Perhaps more in areas tied directly to national security. Uranium, aluminum, heavy crude for Texas refineries, electric power feeding New York City and Boston. Trump may believe he's aiming at Canada, but the recoil hits American soil. By walking out, Carney denied Trump the spectacle. Trump thrives on confrontation. Had Carney stayed and sparred, the president would have dominated the news cycle, labeling him weak or unstable. But you can't battle someone who refuses the arena. Now Trump is posting online claiming he expelled Carney, claiming he canned the meeting. It reads less like strategy and more like damage control. An attempt to convince the public that the collision was intentional. It wasn't. He lost the room. He's losing the market, and he may soon lose parts of his own party. While Trump vented on Truth Social, Carney was executing groundwork laid months ago. That's the distinction. Trump reacts. Carney prepares. Call it the Carney Doctrine. Its premise is stark. The United States is no longer a predictable partner. Reports confirm that while Carney sat in the White House, his finance minister was on a secure call with the European Union. Plan B was being activated. First, the critical mineral strategy. Canada holds vast reserves of lithium, cobalt, and uranium, essential for fighter jets and advanced defense systems. Carney is signaling priority sales to Europe and Japan. Imagine the Pentagon requesting uranium and hearing it's already contracted to France. Second, coordination with Mexico. This is what unsettles Washington most. Carney is working with Mexico's president. If Canada and Mexico resist simultaneously, the USMCA framework unravels. The United States can pressure one border, two at once is another matter. Carney is reframing the narrative. Trump represents risk. Canada represents stability. Investors appear to agree. As the US dollar dips, the Canadian dollar steadies against the euro. Markets look north and see composure. They look to Washington and see volatility. But this isn't abstract. It lands at your doorstep. If the standoff continues 72 hours, consequences hit fast. In the Midwest, auto workers are furrowed. Not fired, just sent home until parts arrive. But parts won't arrive. Paychecks pause, bills do not. In North Dakota and across the Farm Belt, grain travels north by rail to Vancouver's ports. If rail access is restricted, crops sit in silos. At rallies, Trump praises farmers. Today, many face financial ruin. In Boston, when you flip a switch, much of that power flows from Hydro-Quebec. Carney won't shut off electricity, but pricing can change. A volatility surcharge on exported power is legal and immediate. Your utility bill could reflect it. Tariffs aren't abstract weapons aimed overseas. They ricochet domestically. Carney understands that American voters will feel strain faster than messaging can mask it. One detail from the meeting captures everything. As Carney stood to leave, Trump reportedly shouted, "You need us, you'll be back in an hour," begging. Carney paused at the doorway. He did not face the president. He addressed the Secret Service agent holding the door and said, "We're ready to go." Not a retort, a conclusion. The tone of someone closing a chapter. That image, a leader walking away from the resolute desk without looking back, may define this era. So what happens next? Scenario 1, escalation. Trump, feeling slighted, imposes 100% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum and restricts border crossings. Markets plunge another 1,000 points. The Chamber of Commerce revolts. Congressional Republicans grow uneasy as donors lose billions. It's economically destructive, but pride may demand it. Scenario 2, retreat. Advisors persuade him to de-escalate, warning of electoral and economic fallout. The meeting is rescheduled. Calls are made, but Carney now holds leverage. He can wait. Trump cannot. Scenario 3, global realignment. Canada accelerates agreements with China and the European Union. A security pact emerges without U.S. participation. Continental defense coordination erodes. The North American fortress concept dissolves. America stands alone on its own continent. No one can predict which path unfolds. But one thing is clear. Normality is gone. A leader does not exit the Oval Office mid-meeting and return to routine diplomacy the next day. Trust has evaporated. Handshakes mean nothing. History turns on moments, not paperwork. Today was one. Trump attempted to bend Canada. Instead, he cracked the illusion of unquestioned American leverage. Carney walked out, and with him went the assumption that Washington always dictates the terms. Now comes the aftermath. Rising prices, unstable markets, relentless messaging, but power shifted today. It shifted north, and it shifted away from the man behind the resolute desk. So where do you stand? Is Carney defending sovereignty or gambling recklessly with a trade war? Is Trump executing complex strategy or overturning the board out of frustration? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading them all. And when markets open tomorrow and volatility surges, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Others may spin this story. We'll stick to the facts. This is the breakup.